Emily ran her hand over the perfectly polished countertop, as if wanting to assure herself that it was real, just like her life. The glossy kitchen, elegant dishes, and books on the shelves that no one had ever read all looked like a movie set, beautiful, flawless, yet empty. Sitting across from her was Kate, her best friend from university days, who now seemed more like a therapist. In her hands, Kate held a glass of wine, her concerned gaze fixed on Emily. "Kate, I can't take this anymore," Emily began, twirling a strand of her blonde hair around her finger as if trying to distract herself from her thoughts. "I'm tired of being a trophy. You see, he looks at me like I'm an accessory, not a person. I feel like an object, Kate. Do you understand?" "Emmy, you're being dramatic," her friend replied cautiously, trying not to hurt her feelings. "Vincent is a successful man. He cares about you and has provided you with everything." "Everything?" Emily leaned back in her chair, her perfect shoulders slumping slightly as if the weight of the world had just descended on her. "Yes, I can afford any dresses, jewelry, and trips. But is that really everything? Where are the feelings? Where's the passion? I look at him and I see no love in his eyes, not even desire, just pride, as if I'm another successful project on his list." Kate fell silent, at a loss for words. In all their years of friendship, she had never seen Emily so broken. "I don't know what to do," Emily continued, her voice trembling. "I'm scared, but I want something real, you know? Something real." The corporate night began like all similar events. A fancy restaurant, impeccable outfits, and waiters with champagne. Emily, in an elegant deep emerald dress, stood next to Vincent, projecting the image of a perfect couple. Her smile was strained, as it always was when she was in public. Vincent incessantly talked about his accomplishments, nodding to one colleague and then another, as if marking Emily as just another item in his collection. "You look wonderful." The voice from behind made her turn around. Oliver stood before her, a man with an open smile and a keen gaze. He seemed completely different, as if he knew that Emily needed sincerity rather than mere compliments. "Thank you," she replied, trying to mask her embarrassment. His gaze was enveloping. He saw her, not just her dress or her last name. Oliver spent the entire evening with her, pouring her champagne and sharing funny stories that seemed crafted just for her. He noticed the way she crinkled her nose when she laughed, or how her fingers lightly fidgeted with the ring on her fourth finger. As the evening came to a close, Emily felt as if she had awakened from a long sleep. Oliver offered to walk her to her car, and their conversation continued in the silence of the parking lot. She shared thoughts she hadn't been able to voice, even to herself. In his eyes, there was no judgment, only warmth. "You deserve more," he said, leaning in slightly closer. Emily felt her heart skip a beat. It was a moment she couldn't control. For the first time in many years, she felt truly alive, and at that moment she realized there was no turning back. The silence in Vincent's house grew heavier, like the air before a storm. Sitting at the dining table, Emily stirred her cold coffee with a spoon, lost in thought. Her phone lit up, a message from Oliver. Just one short word. "Today?" She smiled a smile that Vincent hadn't seen in a long time. But the joy was fleeting. Vincent, sitting across from her, put down his tablet and fixed his intense gaze on her. "Emily, you've changed." His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with suspicion. "Do you have something to tell me?" Her fingers froze for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "What are you talking about?" she asked, trying to sound indifferent. "Maybe you've been too busy to notice." His look grew even colder, but he said nothing. When he left, Emily felt a wave of fear wash over her. She knew Vincent wouldn't let such changes go unnoticed. A few days later, Emily sensed an invisible shadow trailing her. A black car parked outside her house, where she had spotted a strange man in glasses more than once. Vincent began coming home less often, but each time he returned, the silence was thick with tension. And then, one day, everything changed. "Emily, sit down," he said, standing in the doorway of their bedroom, holding a folder. She obediently settled on the edge of the bed. Vincent stepped closer and tossed the folder onto the table. Photos spilled out snapshots of her and Oliver, smiling in a cafe, strolling through the park. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" His voice was icy. "You don't know me at all. Now you will play by my rules." Emily felt her world collapse around her. She tried to speak, but he raised his hand to silence her. "You will get nothing. No home, no money, no respect. You are finished, Emily. You have always been nothing but a pretty doll, and dolls do not break the rules." He turned and walked away, leaving her in shock. Emily ran to Oliver, feeling her heart shatter. He was her last hope. His apartment seemed like a sanctuary. When he opened the door, his smile filled the room with light. "Oliver, I can't do this anymore. He found out everything." The words spilled out. "I want to leave him. I want to be with you. We can start over, right?" He listened intently, holding her close and running his fingers through her hair. "Of course, Emily," he whispered. "I will help you. We are in this together." For a moment, she believed that everything would be okay. But morning brought a new pain. When Emily suggested they discuss their future plans, Oliver seemed distant. His responses became evasive, and his gaze avoided hers. Soon, the truth was revealed. "Emily, understand this was a mistake." His words felt foreign. "I thought you could give me something more, but if you have nothing, then we have nothing." Her heart stopped. "Wait, you used me?" she whispered, struggling to believe his words. "I was looking out for my own interests," he replied coldly. "I'm sorry." Emily stood in the middle of his apartment, feeling as though the world was collapsing beneath her feet. Back in the house that no longer felt like home, she encountered Vincent. He sat in his office, his expression stern. "No one was waiting for you here," he remarked, not even looking up. "You need to leave, and do it quickly." She didn't argue. Her heart was shattered, and her pride was crushed. All she had left were a bag of a few belongings and her car keys. That night, for the first time in her life, Emily was truly alone. Her new world felt empty and cold. The small rented apartment, where the walls seemed too close, became her refuge. She gazed at her reflection in the mirror, trying to recognize the woman staring back at her. "Who am I now?" she thought. Yet in her eyes, a spark ignited. She no longer wanted to be a plaything. This was her first step toward a new life. Rain had been falling for 3 hours, blurring the gray sky against the window. Emily sat by the window of her tiny apartment, sipping a cup of hot tea. Drops ran down the glass like her tears, which had long since dried. The past months had been a trial, loneliness, fear, and the struggle for every penny. But now, looking at her reflection in the cloudy glass, she saw not a broken woman, but someone who was starting anew. Emily found a job as an administrator at a small gallery, surrounded by paintings and the scent of coffee from the cafe next door. The work was a far cry from the glamorous life she had once lived, but it held something real. Every evening, she left feeling that she had done something important. One day, returning from the gallery, she saw him. Vincent stood at her door, impeccably dressed, wearing that same expression that had once sent shivers down her spine. "Did you think I would let you in?" Emily asked coldly, cracking the door open. "I just wanted to see how you were doing." His voice dripped with sarcasm. Is it too hard living without the usual comforts? Emily took a slow breath and looked him straight in the eyes. You know, Vincent, I'm not afraid of you anymore. His eyebrows raised in surprise, but he remained silent. She continued, You were used to seeing me as weak and dependent, but I'm not that woman anymore. You've lost your power over me, and strangely enough, I'm grateful to you for that. For a moment, irritation flashed across his face, but he quickly composed himself. Good luck, Emily. I think you'll need it. He turned and left, leaving behind the scent of his expensive cologne. Yet for the first time, Emily felt not cold, but a sense of relief. Weeks passed. Emily devoted herself to her work, and in the evenings, she began to write something she had long dreamed of, but had never dared to pursue. Her notes slowly transformed into chapters of a novel. Her new life was far from perfect, but she cherished every moment. A simple room with a warm blanket and books, an old bicycle she rode to the park every morning to breathe in the fresh air. Within these small things lay her freedom. One day at the gallery, a man approached her. He was a stranger, but he didn't seem in a hurry to leave. Excuse me, I noticed how you spoke about the paintings. You have real talent. Have you considered trying your hand at art? She smiled. Maybe I will, but I'll never rush again. He smiled back, understanding that this was her principle, to no longer tie her life to the expectations of others.